Humans saved an injured beast from certain death, not knowing it was the pet of the Baroness. The derelict station smelled like rust and old fear. Dominic Raines kept his breathing shallow as he moved through the corridor, his boot soles silent against the grated floor. Emergency lighting flickered overhead, casting everything in sickly amber, and the air tasted metallic on his tongue. He'd docked his freighter to the outer ring an hour ago, expecting the place to be stripped clean by salvagers, but the airlock seals had been intact. That meant either someone had locked it down before evacuating, or something inside had kept people out. He paused at a junction, listening. The station's hull groaned around him, metal contracting in the cold of space. His fingers brushed the plasma cutter hanging from his belt. He wasn't here for trouble, just parts. His freighter's coolant manifold had been screaming for 3 days, and the nearest hub with decent salvage was 2 jumps away, through territory he couldn't afford to cross. A sound reached him, low, wet, rhythmic. Breathing. Dom's pulse kicked up. He turned toward the sound, moving carefully past collapsed ceiling panels and shattered displays. The corridor opened into what had once been a research lab. Overturned chairs, broken glass, dark stains on the floor that could have been chemicals or blood. The breathing came from the far corner, behind a sealed containment unit with a cracked viewport. He approached slowly, his hand tight on the cutter's grip. Through the viewport, he saw it. White and black fur matted with blood. A massive body sprawled across the floor, ribs expanding and contracting with shallow effort. The creature's head was the size of Dom's torso, with a broad muzzle and tufted ears pressed flat against its skull. One amber eye cracked open as he drew near, tracking his movement with predatory focus despite the obvious pain. Dom had seen pictures of tigress wolves in the databanks, apex predators from Kethran space, bonded companions to their ruling class, dangerous as hell and worth more alive than most stations. This one was dying. He should leave. Walk away. Let nature or fate or whatever ran the universe take its course. He had his own problems, and getting involved with Kethran property was a fast way to end up in a cell or worse. The creature's eye closed, its breathing hitched. Dom cursed under his breath and moved to the containment unit's control panel. The lock had been damaged, maybe deliberately, but the mechanism still had power. He overrode the seal with the cutter, and the door hissed open, releasing a wave of humid air that carried the copper scent of blood. He knelt beside the tigress wolf, his hands hovering over the matted fur. 3 deep wounds ran along its flank, edges cauterized but still seeping. Plasma burns. Someone had shot it and left it here to die. The creature's eye opened again. It didn't growl or snap, just watched him with an intelligence that made his chest tighten. Dom pulled his med kit from his pack. The supplies were meant for humans, not alien predators, but biology was biology. He irrigated the wounds with saline, his hands steady despite the fact that the tigress wolf could take his arm off with 1 bite. It trembled under his touch but didn't move. He worked through the night, applied coagulant gel to the worst of the burns, rigged an IV line from his emergency plasma supply, and taped it to the creature's foreleg. Monitored its vitals with a handheld scanner that beeped softly in the silence. The tigress wolf's breathing steadied, deepened, its massive body relaxed by degrees. When the sun simulation cycled on overhead, Dom slumped against the wall, exhaustion pulling at his bones. The tigress wolf slept. Its chest rose and fell with something closer to normal rhythm. He should still leave. Staying was stupid. He stayed. 2 days passed in a blur of feeding tubes and wound care. The tigress wolf regained some strength, enough to lift its head and watch Dom with those unnerving amber eyes. He talked to it while he worked, keeping his voice low and calm, told it about his freighter, about the coolant manifold that would probably blow if he pushed the engines too hard, about the loneliness of empty space. The creature listened. On the 3rd morning, Dom's proximity alarm screamed. He bolted upright from where he'd dozed in the corner and pulled up the external feed on his datapad. A ship had dropped out of hyperspace 50 kilometers off the station's bow. Sleek, predatory, Kethran design, all swept angles and dark plating that drank light. His stomach dropped. The comm crackled, a voice cut through, sharp and cold and utterly controlled. "Human vessel, You are in violation of Ascendancy territory. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Dom glanced at the tigress wolf. It had lifted its head, ears swiveling forward, and something in its posture had changed. Recognition. Hope. He activated the comm. This is Dominic Rains of the freighter Rust Bucket. I'm not armed and I'm not a threat. I found something of yours and I've been keeping it alive. Silence, then clarify. Tigress wolf. Plasma burns. Someone left it here to die. Another pause, longer this time. When the voice returned, it carried an edge he couldn't identify. Do not move. Do not touch my companion. If you have harmed him, I will take it from your flesh. The connection cut. 15 minutes later, the airlock cycled. Boots rang against the deck plating, purposeful and precise. Dom stood in the lab entrance, hands visible and empty, as 3 armed Kethrans in ceremonial armor swept through the corridor. Behind them came a woman who made the air feel heavier just by entering it. She was tall, taller than Dom by half a foot, with pale skin that caught the amber light like polished stone. Black hair fell in intricate braids threaded with gold, and her eyes were the same luminous amber as the tigress wolf's, with pupils that narrowed to vertical slits as she focused on him. She wore dark robes layered over fitted armor, and she moved with the kind of control that came from a lifetime of discipline. Her gaze swept past him to the containment unit, to the tigress wolf inside. Her composure shattered. She crossed the space in 3 strides and dropped to her knees beside the creature, her hands trembling as they touched its fur. The tigress wolf rumbled, a sound deep in its chest, and pressed its massive head against her shoulder. She bent over it, fingers threading through blood-matted fur, and for a moment, Dom saw something raw and unguarded in her expression. Relief, love. Then she straightened, and the mask returned. She stood slowly, her amber eyes locking onto Dom with an intensity that made his pulse hammer. You saved him. It wasn't a question. Her voice was measured, formal, each word shaped with precision. Dom nodded. He was dying. I couldn't just walk away. She studied him for a long moment, and he had the sense of being catalogued, assessed. Her fingers flexed at her sides, claws retracting into the tips. I am Baroness Talvera Shen of the Kethran Ascendancy. Vec is my bonded companion. By the codes of my people, I owe you a blood debt. I don't want payment. Her head tilted slightly. Explain. I didn't save him for money. I did it because it was the right thing to do. She stared at him like he'd spoken in a language she didn't know. Her guards shifted behind her, clearly uneasy. Talvera's ears flicked back, then forward again, and her pupils dilated fractionally. That makes no sense. Dom shrugged. Doesn't have to. Before she could respond, the station shuddered. Alarms wailed. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency red. Dom's datapad screamed warnings, and he pulled up the external feed with shaking hands. 3 ships had dropped from hyperspace, smaller than the Kethran warship, but numerous. They were already firing, plasma rounds tearing through the station's outer hull. The Kethran ship tried to maneuver, but the attack was coordinated, brutal. The feed showed the warship's hull rupture in a bloom of white fire. Talvera's breath caught. One of her guards shouted something in their language, urgent and panicked. She turned to Dom, her expression frozen. My ship. Gone, Dom said. He grabbed her arm without thinking, feeling the tension in her muscles. We need to move, now. Debris rained through space around the station, and the hull groaned. Talvera hesitated for half a heartbeat, her gaze flicking between the viewport and Vec. Then she bent, lifting the tigress wolf with strength that shouldn't have been possible for her frame, and followed Dom into the corridor. They ran. Dom's freighter shuddered as they cleared the debris field. He kept his hands steady on the controls while Talvera stood behind him, one hand on Vec's head where the tigress wolf lay sprawled across the cargo netting. Her 2 surviving guards flanked the entrance. 3 jump points showed on the navigation display, 2 led through Ascendancy space, the 3rd cut through neutral territory. There, Talvera said, leaning over his shoulder. Her breath was warm against his ear. The freehold stations. Dom plotted the jump. The hyperspace drive spooled up with a grinding sound that made him wince. They jumped, and the viewports filled with distorted light. Dom exhaled and slumped in his chair. Talvera remained standing, watching the starfield with rigid posture despite the exhaustion in her eyes. "Your guards," Dom said, "the ones who didn't make it. I'm sorry." Her ears flicked. They died fulfilling their duty. There is honor in that. Does honor make it hurt less? Something flickered in her amber eyes, then vanished. Pain is irrelevant, only the outcome matters. Dom stood. "You can rest here. I'm checking the cargo bay." "I will remain with Vec." He descended the ladder, spent an hour securing containers, then returned. One of Talvera's guards met him. "The Baroness requests you dock at Freehold 7. She has contacts there." "About who attacked you?" The guard's pupils narrowed. "That is not your concern, human." Dom pushed past him. Talvera sat in his chair now, eyes fixed on the viewport. Vec lay at her feet. "You want to stop at Freehold 7? "I need information. The attack was coordinated." She didn't look at him. "I have allies who can help identify the perpetrators." "And if they're waiting there, then we deal with them." Dom dropped into the co-pilot seat. "You said humans are transactional? That we're all out for ourselves? Are you not? I've been alone on this freighter for 3 years, but when I see something suffering, I can't walk away, even if it's stupid." He met her gaze. "Maybe that makes me a bad human." She studied him, pupils expanding. "You are unusual." "I've been called worse." A ghost of a smile touched her lips, then vanished. 6 hours later, they dropped out of hyperspace. Freehold 7 sprawled ahead, repurposed colony ships welded together. Dom docked on the outer ring. The air tasted stale when the airlock cycled. Talvera moved ahead, guards flanking her. Dom followed with Vec padding beside him. The tigress wolf had insisted on coming. Station corridors were crowded, people pressing against walls to let the Kethrans pass. They reached a dim bar 3 levels down. Talvera spoke briefly with a scarred woman behind the counter. The woman disappeared into the back, then returned with a data chip. Talvera inserted it into a reader. Her fingers tightened on the device. "What is it?" Dom asked. "The attack was not random. I was the target." She set the reader down. "Dissidents within the Ascendancy. They view me as a symbol of everything they wish to destroy." "Why?" "Because I advocate for integration, for opening our borders to species we have dismissed as inferior." Her gaze lifted, "including humans." The lights went out. Emergency systems bathed everything in red. Shouting erupted. Dom was on his feet, hand finding the plasma cutter. Talvera moved faster, guards beside her with weapons drawn. Figures poured through the entrance, Kethrans in mismatched armor. One pointed at Talvera. "Baroness Shen, you are charged with treason. Surrender or die." Talvera's lip curled. "I recognize no authority but my own conscience." They opened fire. Dom hit the floor as plasma rounds tore overhead. Vec roared and launched himself at the nearest attacker. Talvera moved like liquid violence, claws extended. She took down 2 in seconds. Her guards fought desperately, but they were outnumbered. One went down, the other held the right flank. Dom rushed forward, dragged a civilian out of the crossfire. He turned just in time to see an attacker line up a shot on Talvera's exposed back. He didn't think, slammed into the attacker from the side. They went down in a tangle. Dom got an elbow to the ribs. He fumbled for the cutter, brought it up. The blade ignited. The attacker kicked him and rolled away. Strong hands hauled Dom to his feet. Talvera, her face was spattered with blood. "You are an idiot." "You're welcome." She made a sound between a growl and a laugh, then shoved him toward the exit. "Move." They ran through corridors, Vec and the guard covering their retreat. Plasma rounds scored the walls. Dom's side screamed, but he kept moving. Talvera's hand tight on his arm. They reached the freighter, the airlock sealed. Dom climbed to the command deck with shaking hands. Talvera barked orders at her guard. Dom fired the engines. The freighter lurched away, warning alarms screaming. He pushed hard enough to make the hull groan. The station dwindled behind them. Dom sagged in his chair, ribs throbbing. Talvera stood beside him, one hand pressed to a gash on her shoulder. Blood seeped down her arm. "Let me see that," he said. "It is nothing." "Let me see it." She hesitated, then moved closer. He guided her into the chair, pulled his med kit. The wound was deep but clean. He worked carefully, irrigating it with saline and applying synthetic skin. Talvera flinched when his fingers brushed her bare skin. Sharp, almost violent, but she didn't pull away. Her pupils contracted. Her breathing changed. "Sorry," Dom murmured. "Almost done. Physical contact is not customary among my people." "You want me to stop?" "Quiet. Continue." He finished and stepped back. Talvera remained in the chair, gaze on the viewport. Silence stretched between them. "Thank you," she said finally, "for what you did in the bar. You could have been killed too. I am accustomed to danger. Doesn't mean you deserve it." She looked at him, something shifting in her expression. "You truly believe that?" "Yeah, I do." Vec patted over and pressed his massive head against Dom's hip. Dom ran his fingers through the tigress wolf's fur. When he looked up, Talvera was watching with an expression he couldn't name. "He has never accepted an outsider before," she said softly. "Vec's trust is not given lightly." "He's a good judge of character, then." "Perhaps," she stood slowly. "We need a safe harbor, somewhere they will not think to look." "I know a place. Old friend runs a medical outpost 2 jumps from here. She doesn't ask questions." "Then set the course." Dom did. As the hyperspace drive spooled up, he glanced at Talvera. She stood at the viewport with Vec beside her. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked something other than untouchable. The jump took them and the stars dissolved into light. Mira's outpost clung to a barren moon. Dom brought the freighter down through thin atmosphere, landing struts groaning on cracked permafrost. Mira met them at the airlock, small, compact, with dark skin and sharp brown eyes. "You bring the most interesting problems." She led them to the medical bay. Mira examined Vec, then turned to Talvera. "You're bleeding through that synthetic skin. Don't argue." Talvera sat. Mira worked quickly, applying proper sutures. When she finished, she pointed at Dom. "Bed now, both of you." Dom collapsed onto the narrow bunk. Sleep hit him hard. He woke to darkness. Talvera stood silhouetted in the doorway. "Something wrong?" "I cannot rest." She stepped inside. "Every time I close my eyes, I see you taking that hit meant for me." Dom sat up. "You're safe here." "For how long?" She moved to the viewport. "Cyril will not stop." "Then we make sure that doesn't happen." She turned. "Why do you care? I brought danger to your door." He crossed to her. "You fought beside me. Vec chose you. That means something." "Vec chose you," she corrected softly. "He chose us both." Her pupils expanded. Her hand lifted, touched his arm, just her fingertips trembling. "In my culture, physical contact is reserved for family, for bonded pairs." Her fingers tightened. "I do not trust easily, but you have given me every reason." Dom covered her hand with his. "I'm not going anywhere. I have never had anyone fight for me before, not truly, but you fought because you chose to." Her voice dropped. "From choice. You're worth fighting for." Her breath caught. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his. They stood breathing together until Talvera stepped back. "Sleep, we will need our strength." She left. Dom's forehead still tingled. Morning came with Mira shaking him. "We've got a problem." Dom followed her to the communication center. A transmission played on loop, Cyril standing over someone bound to a chair. "Bruised and bloodied." Cyril's voice cut through. "Baroness Shen, 24 hours to surrender at these coordinates or your human ally dies. Come alone." The transmission ended. Dom looked at Mira, alive and unharmed. "That's not you." 2 days ago, they grabbed me at the safe house. I escaped this morning." "Then we ignore it," Talvera's guard said. "Except they don't know she escaped," Dom said. Talvera's hands curled into fists. "This is my fault." "They're going to kill whoever they think is me," Mira said. "There is no one," the guard insisted. "You don't know that." Dom studied the coordinates. "Where is this?" "Abandoned mining facility on Helix 6, 3 hours." "It's a trap," the guard said. "She won't walk into it." Dom looked at Talvera. "But I will." "Absolutely not. They want you. I can verify whether they actually have a prisoner." "And if there are 20 armed dissidents?" "Then I improvise." Talvera stepped close. "You would risk your life for someone who might not even be there?" "Wouldn't you?" She stared at him. Yes, I would. She turned to her guard. Prepare the freighter. Baroness! That is an order. 3 hours later, Dom piloted toward Helix 6 alone. The mining facility loomed ahead, skeletal structure clinging to an asteroid. He scanned for life signs, 8 heat signatures. Too many. He docked anyway. The airlock cycled. Dom stepped into darkness and emergency lighting. I'm here, he called. Cyril emerged from shadows flanked by 5 armed Kethrans. The human pet, where is your mistress? Somewhere you can't reach her. Then you came to die for nothing, she gestured. 2 soldiers moved forward. Wait, you said you had Miracade. Cyril smiled. The medic escaped. We have no one. This was always about drawing the Baroness out. She tilted her head. Is she worth dying for? Yeah, she is. How sentimental. Cyril raised her hand, plasma rifles aimed at his chest. Any last words? The facility shook. Dust rained. Alarms blared. The Kethran scattered and Dom dove behind a support pillar as the wall exploded inward. Talvera stood in the breach, Vec beside her. Her claws were extended, eyes blazing. You want me, Cyril? Come take me. The dissidents opened fire. Talvera moved like violence given form. Vec tore into 2 soldiers while her guard provided covering fire. Dom pulled his plasma cutter and joined the fight. Cyril met Talvera in the center. Their collision sent both sprawling. They rose, circling. You chose a human over your own people, Cyril snarled. I chose someone who sees beyond duty. Talvera's voice was steel. Dom taught me what true honor means, not blind obedience, but the courage to protect what you love even when it costs everything. Then you will die for that love. They clashed, claws met claws. Both moved with lethal precision. Talvera's guard grabbed Dom's shoulder. This is her fight. Talvera and Cyril moved in a deadly dance. Cyril was faster, but Talvera fought with purpose. When Cyril overextended, Talvera struck, claws finding throat. Cyril collapsed. The remaining dissidents fled. Talvera stood breathing hard. Then she turned, eyes finding Dom. She crossed to him in 3 strides and pulled him close, forehead pressing to his. You came anyway, she said, voice rough, after I ordered you to stay. Couldn't let you have all the fun. She made a sound between a laugh and a sob. Her hands cupped his face, thumbs tracing his cheekbones. You terrify me, the way you refuse to give up, the way you see worth in everyone. Her voice dropped, the way you make me want things I have spent my life suppressing. What things? This. She kissed him. Her lips were warm and soft, carrying everything words couldn't. Relief and fear and want and trust. Dom's hands found her waist, pulling her closer, and for a moment the ruined facility and the danger ceased to exist. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Talvera rested her forehead against his again. We should leave, she murmured, before reinforcements arrive. Probably, but neither of them moved, not yet. They made it back to the freighter with Cyril's blood still wet on Talvera's claws. Dom fired the engines before the airlock finished cycling, pushing them away from the asteroid as fast as the aging vessel could manage. Behind them, the mining facility dwindled into the black. Talvera stood at the viewport, her breathing still elevated from the fight. Her guard had secured the ship and retreated to give them privacy. Vec lay at her feet, amber eyes watching Dom at the controls. Where do we go now? She asked quietly. Dom plotted a course that would take them deeper into neutral space, somewhere they can't follow, at least for a while. They will always follow. The conspiracy goes deeper than Cyril. She turned to face him. I received confirmation before we left Mira's outpost. The assassination order came from the Ascendancy High Council itself. My own people want me dead. The words landed heavy. Dom set the autopilot and crossed to her. Then we don't go back. I cannot simply abandon my duty. Your duty tried to kill you. My duty is to my people, not to the corrupt leaders who have twisted our values. Her ears flicked back. There are others like me, reformers who believe the ascendancy must change or it will collapse from within. I have been in contact with them. They are gathering support, but they need time. How much time? Weeks, perhaps months. She looked at him, amber eyes searching. I cannot ask you to wait. You have already risked too much for me. Dom reached out, his fingers finding hers. "I'm not going anywhere." "You say that now, but—" "No." He stepped closer, his other hand lifting to cup her face. "I spent 3 years drifting through space alone because I was afraid of getting hurt, afraid of losing people. Then I found Vec and you, and suddenly I had something worth staying for." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "You make me want to stop running." Talvera's breath hitched. Her hand came up to cover his, pressing it against her cheek. "I am terrified of this, of what I feel for you. My entire life has been defined by control, by discipline, by suppressing anything that might be perceived as weakness." Her voice dropped. "But with you, I do not want to be controlled. I want to be seen, to be known." "I see you. I know." She leaned into his touch. "That is what terrifies me most." Dom pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. She tensed for half a heartbeat, then melted into the embrace, her forehead pressing against his shoulder. They stood like that while the stars streamed past outside, two people from different worlds holding onto each other in the vastness of space. Vec made a low rumbling sound, something between a purr and a growl. Talvera lifted her head and laughed, the sound startled and genuine. "He approves." "Smart creature." She pulled back enough to look at him, and the vulnerability in her expression made his chest ache. "When this is over, when the ascendancy is reformed or destroyed, where will you go?" "Wherever you are. Even if that means giving up your freedom, your ship?" "This ship's freedom. With you, it's just home with better engines." She kissed him then, soft and slow, and when they broke apart, her eyes were bright. The next 3 days passed in a strange kind of peace. They drifted through neutral space, avoiding major routes and keeping communications dark. Talvera spent hours in encrypted contact with her allies, building a coalition of reformers willing to challenge the High Council. Dom kept the ship running, made repairs, and taught Talvera how to play cards with a battered deck he'd found in storage. She was terrible at cards, but approached each game with the same focus she brought to everything else. Dom found himself watching her more than the game, memorizing the way her ears tilted when she was thinking, the way her pupils expanded when she was pleased. On the 4th day, Talvera's guard found them in the cargo bay where Dom was showing her the coolant manifold he'd been meaning to replace for months. "Baroness, we have incoming." They rushed to the command deck. 3 ships had dropped out of hyperspace ahead of them. Not dissidents. Kethran Ascendancy warships, their hulls marked with the official insignia. Dom's hands moved to the controls, ready to run, but Talvera stopped him. "Wait!" A transmission came through. The face on the screen was older than Talvera, with silver fur at her temples and scars tracing her jaw. Her amber eyes were sharp, but not hostile. "Baroness Shen, I am Commander Valis of the Reform Fleet. We have secured the support of 60% of the Ascendancy military. The High Council has been arrested pending investigation into the conspiracy against you." She inclined her head. "You have allies, Baroness. It is time to come home." Talvera's hand found Dom squeezing tight. "And if I choose not to return?" Valis's expression didn't change. "Then we will respect your decision, but your voice would carry weight in the trials ahead. The Ascendancy needs leaders who understand that strength comes from unity, not isolation." Talvera looked at Dom. He saw the conflict in her eyes, the pull between duty and the freedom she'd glimpsed. "It's your choice," he said quietly. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you." She turned back to the screen. "I will return, but not as Baroness, as a citizen working toward reform." Her voice was steady. "And I will be bringing a human with me. If the Ascendancy wishes to change, it must begin by acknowledging the worth of all species." Valis's eyes flicked to Dom, then back to Talvera. A slow smile crossed her face. "Understood. We will escort you to the homeworld." The transmission ended. Talvera exhaled slowly, and Dom felt the tension drain from her shoulders. "Are you certain?" he asked. "No, but I am willing to try," she looked at him, "with you beside me." "Always." The journey to the Kethran homeworld took 2 weeks. The Reform Fleet maintained a protective perimeter around Dom's freighter, and Talvera spent long hours in communication with her allies, building the framework for a new government. Dom stayed close, offering support when she needed it, and space when she didn't. At night, they shared the narrow bunk in the captain's quarters, curled together with Vec sprawled across the floor. Talvera would press her forehead to his, and they would talk in whispers about the future they were building. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace above the Kethran homeworld, Dom felt his breath catch. The planet was beautiful. Silver oceans and dark green continents, with 3 moons hanging in orbit like pearls. It's stunning. It is home. Talvera's hand found his, and now it is yours as well if you wish it. They landed at the capital spaceport, and Dom felt the weight of 1,000 eyes as they descended the ramp. Kethrans filled the plaza, their amber eyes tracking him with curiosity and suspicion in equal measure. Vec walked beside them, his presence a clear statement. Commander Vallis met them at the base of the ramp. She inclined her head to Talvera, then, surprisingly, to Dom as well. The trials begin tomorrow. The people will want to hear from you, Baroness. Then they will hear truth. Talvera straightened. That the Ascendancy's strength lies not in isolation, but in our willingness to learn from others. That honor means protecting those who cannot protect themselves, regardless of species. Her voice carried across the plaza, and that love is not weakness, but the greatest courage we can possess. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some looked skeptical, others nodded slowly. Talvera turned to Dom. Will you stand with me? He took her hand, their fingers intertwining, always. The trials lasted 3 months. The corrupt High Council members were removed from power, and new leaders were elected. Reformers who believed in opening borders and building alliances, rather than maintaining isolation. Talvera declined offers to return to her Baroness title, choosing instead to serve as an ambassador for interspecies relations. Dom sold the freighter. It felt like saying goodbye to an old friend, but he didn't need it anymore. He had a home now, a purpose. He and Talvera took quarters in the capital, a modest apartment with a view of the Silver Ocean. Vec claimed the largest room for himself, much to Dom's amusement and Talvera's resigned acceptance. 6 months after they'd first met on that derelict station, Dom found Talvera on their balcony watching the sunset. The light turned her pale skin golden, and when she turned to look at him, her smile was open and unguarded. I have something for you, she said. She held out a small box. Inside was a medallion on a silver chain, Kethran craftsmanship, showing a tigress wolf and a human figure standing side by side. It is a bonding symbol, she explained. In my culture, it signifies a permanent partnership, not marriage, but something deeper, a recognition that 2 souls have chosen each other across all barriers. Her eyes searched his. I know human customs differ, and I do not wish to presume. Dom kissed her, cutting off her words. When he pulled back, he was grinning. Yes. I have not finished explaining? Yes. She laughed, the sound bright and free, and helped him fasten the chain around his neck. Then she produced a second medallion, and he clasped it around her throat with trembling fingers. They stood together on the balcony as the sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. Vec joined them, pressing his massive head against Dom's hip, and Talvera leaned into Dom's side. I never imagined this, she said softly. When I was hunting for Vec, when I thought I had lost him forever, I could not have imagined finding something more precious. What's that? Hope. She looked up at him. You gave me hope that change is possible, that love can bridge any divide, that choosing compassion over duty is not betrayal, but the truest form of honor. Dom wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. You gave me a reason to stop drifting, a place to belong. Then we are even. No. He pressed his forehead to hers, the gesture now as natural as breathing. I'd say we're just getting started. Below them, the city lights began to flicker on, one by one, until the capital glowed like a constellation brought to earth. And above them, the stars wheeled in their ancient dance, indifferent to borders and species and the small, defiant acts of courage that changed worlds. Dom and Talvera stood together, 2 souls who had found each other across the vastness of space, and they held on tight.